Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. I forgot to do an intro to this video when we were on the road, so I thought I would do a quick one before I insert all the footage that I took when we were out. We had a really big incident happen with the camper that in the moment was not great. We were able to overcome it. So this video is going to explain to you what happened and what we did to resolve it in the immediate term, because we were thousands of miles away from home when it happened. Kind of everybody's worst fear when you have a camper. First, if you're new to the channel, my name is Jennifer Preston. My husband Michael and I are the Happier Camper OGs. We had an HC1 in 2016, and today we have an HCT. And this channel is really for people who are new to camping, or they want to learn about the Happier Camper brand, and hopefully we have content that can help you. So let's switch over to the videos that I took when we were on the road. Yeah, so we had a thing happen. I'm going to show you what the outcome of it is. I'll describe what happened, and then when we get to our next stop, I will show you how we're dealing with it, because it was a big deal. So let me turn the camera around and I'll show you what happened. All right, I hope that it's pretty apparent immediately. It should not look like that. This is at an extreme angle. And if you look at the bottom, it's all chewed up. So, obviously we're not using that for what it was intended for. I think on the positive side, when we do get back, we'll be able to back off those lug nuts and just replace it real easily. But when you're on a cross-country trip, that is not an experience you want to have. So we'll get going in the car, and Mike and I can describe what happened. So let's talk about our major mishap.
It feels like so long ago.
It does.
It was in a different country.
It was in Canada. It was forever ago. But I just showed folks what the hitch looks like.
Well, it was strange.
Yeah,
because we'd driven out of a campsite over plenty of bumps and,
we've been on the road for like an hour.
At least, yeah. And then we came into a town, I think it was called Turner Valley in Canada. And literally, as I said, oh, look, we're entering Turner Valley, because that's what the sign said. The back just jumped off. The camper just jumped off.
Well, we didn't know what it was at first, but we knew immediately we had to stop.
Yeah, we didn't go over a big bump or anything. I mean, there was a slight change in the road, but it wasn't anything.
So here's the deal. Like, we've been doing this for 8 years now. And if this can happen to us, it can happen to anybody. So
I wouldn't say that. Well, I mean, yeah.
I mean, we're pretty solid at hooking up.
I mean, we thought we'd hooked up right. We thought the ball hitch was on properly with the little clasp underneath it. But
and that's what failed, right? So
it looked good.
And just to be clear, I was in the car and backed it up to hook up. Michael did the hooking up.
Yeah, maybe.
And
I certainly put the chains on, the brake on, which were very important.
They were very important. But yeah, so we got out of the car, and it did not look good. The camper, so when you take the flywheel off, so you crank it up to take the flywheel up when you're hooked up to the vehicle, you take off the flywheel, put that in the storage unit that we've got, and then you've just got this pole that is up pretty far, because obviously you've extended the flywheel up. And that pole, as you can see in the video I just showed you, is now at an angle.
Yeah, no longer at 90 degrees.
Yeah, exactly, which is not the way you want it.
And the base of it isn't shit off, but it's certainly been damaged. Like
for sure. It's at an angle.
We need to replace it. We can't just.
But I showed them that, like, if we back out those bolts, I think it's going to be an easy thing to replace. But we were pretty freaked out, to be honest. But we were very calm when it happened.
When we stopped, basically the tongue of the camper was on the floor. So we were thinking, first thought was, how are we going to
get it up,
raise it to be able to get it back onto the thing? And we ended up using the jack from our car, from the Land Rover, which we put underneath the tongue and just about managed to get it up. And we used the stabilizers
just
the front.
as a backup, and then we had the chalk in,
case it
and
drops,
yeah,
so we didn't drop all the way down.
yeah. So actually, so if this happens to you, so you know what the process that we went through was, we immediately put a chalk behind the back wheel so that it wasn't going to go anywhere. We tried to figure out how we were, because really, when you looked at it, the only thing that we had to solve for was getting the tongue up onto the ball hitch. That was really the problem we had to solve for. Because once we got that, then we just needed to make sure that we replugged the brake back in and that everything worked.
Yeah. Well, the second thing we did after putting the chalk in the back was we backed the car up 6 inches because they're not chains, but the wires we have connecting were so tight.
Yeah, they were fully extended because
they were fully extended, so we had to back up and give them some slack.
Yeah.
The brake had worked. I mean, it had popped out of where it goes into the camper,
and honestly, like, I had never even thought about how that brake was going to work. I actually went on the Facebook group and I was like, if you've activated the brake, how do you make sure that when you go to leave again, it's not still like in activation mode? It was very simple. You just replug it back in.
Yeah.
Yep. So
yeah, it couldn't have been easier. And then we used the car jack to raise it bit by bit, and then we got to the point where we could.
Well, what's interesting is we got it back on the hitch, but it wasn't actually seated correctly.
Again.
So I was driving really slowly, and then I would stop quick to see if we could get it to like pop back on. And it just wasn't working great. And we stopped again.
Just about.
And again, and we're doing like 5 miles an hour here trying to get this thing to work. And there's these two older gentlemen sitting on their porch, and they're like, "Hey, you need help?"
Dave and Gary.
And like, yeah. It ends up that Dave had recently built his own trailer, so that was good. And they were great. Like, and I was thanking them at the end, and they're like, "We didn't do anything. You guys did everything right." And I was like, "But you were emotional support," and we really needed it because it felt, in a moment like that, you're in another country. You've got thousands of miles to go on your, your
We're wondering
trip.
whether or not AAA covered us in Canada. We should have figured that before.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they would. But even so, right? It was just. But it was perfectly fine, because if you think about the mechanics of this, the problem statement was we needed to be able to raise and lower the hitch. That's all the problem statement was at the end of the day, and that's exactly what our jack does. And so that's what we've been using. Now, I will say that I would prefer it if we had the flywheel, because one of the things you do when you are trying to get the camper seated onto that ball hitch is you kind of wiggle the camper around a little bit sometimes to get it to get on there. And you really got to be careful doing that when you're using a hitch underneath it, because you don't want to wiggle it around the jack, because you don't want it to just pop off the jack. And then,
which is why, though, we've been having the front stabilizers down to being within a couple of inches of the ground, so if we do knock it off the jack, it doesn't just crash the ground.
Yeah, but it's worked perfectly fine. Like, I have no concerns at all.
We could always camp like this, but I'd rather have the float.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to be mission. Well, not the first thing we do when we get back, but we'll have to get that sorted pretty quickly. Yeah, it's like 95 degrees and 95% humidity back home, so we're probably not even going to go outside for quite some time when we get back. But yeah, so when we get to our next campground, which by the way is Chaco Canyon, this is a bucket list thing for me. We managed to get two nights at the Gallo Campground, which is inside the park, which is just amazing. But when we get to the campground, I will show you how we're using the jack, because we are going to have to unhook, because tomorrow we're going to be driving around. I think it's like an 18-mile loop. But yeah,
you should also
persevered.
Flip this camera around
To see where we're seeing.
Yeah, it's like it's like driving through the Tyrol in Austria. It's nice.
I think it's so hard to fully represent like what it is we're seeing.
It's not bad for a morning's drive.
Yeah. So now on the way to Chaco, we're going to hit where are we going? Silverton, which is apparently a town that has kind of looks like an old west town. Was it your dad that told us about that?
My dad told me there's a dirt road that runs through the centre of town, and he's always told me we need to take the steam train from Silverton to Durango, which we obviously won't be doing because we don't have time, but it's supposed to be a very cool downtown area.
Well, what's funny is that, so Michael's parents obviously are English, and they have lived in Birmingham for their whole lives, basically. But close enough. But they have been to America
30 plus.
30, yeah. Now Michael's mother has passed, but we travel a lot, and particularly in the U.S. with the camper, and everywhere we go, inevitably, Roger and Edwina have already been there. It's so annoying. In fact, here's a great one, right? So we are driving back up north from a long haul trip, and we are somewhere in, like, I guess it was Pennsylvania or something.
It was in Virginia. They're not going to let you call it up north.
Okay, sorry.
It's below the Mason-Dixon.
Sorry.
We're in Virginia, Natural Bridge, Virginia.
Okay. And there was a sign for something called Foamhenge, which is a foam reproduction of Stonehenge. And I said to Michael, I'm like, we have to go see this because your parents will never, ever, ever have gone to Foamhenge. That is impossible. We get there, we call them.
Well, we couldn't find it. It wasn't there.
Actually, I think, yeah, they had moved it. Yeah.
Gone.
But we got up there to the site where it was supposed to be. You called your parents, and your father was like, oh, Foamhenge. Yeah, we were there. I'm like, God damn it. I mean, it was Nova Scotia before we went somewhere they hadn't been.
Yeah, they haven't been to Yellowstone.
And okay, yeah. But seriously, everywhere else they've been. So it does not surprise me that we're on a 2-lane road in Colorado headed to Silverton, and Roger and Edwina have already been there. So yeah, when we get there, we'll show you a little bit about what that looks like. See if it stands up to Roger's description.
Maybe I'll FaceTime him while we're driving down the dirt road.
Oh, great. We're at Chaco Canyon, Gallo Campground. I want to show you how we're using the jack to deal with our little mishap. All right, so I guess here's you got this used with the jack. Do you have it under it now?
I do. I was going to unhook the car first.
Okay, and then there's a nice little feature with a Land Rover. I'm going to try to lift the back end of the car up. We'll see how that works.
I'm going to come around that way.
Here, I'll do it. Here, why don't you film?
Brake. Okay.
All right, now this one little feature.
You'll have to look.
You do the. You watch the.
So if it pops
Oh, I'm going down. Sorry.
up. No, look at that. Down is what we want. Look at that.
How about them apples?
And now I'm going to crank this a little bit more. And take that.
Hold on, let me come around.
Now, in lieu of the broken
Yeah.
wheel,
Just gonna raise that up a little bit. Get a little more clearance off the ball hitch. And then we gotta move the car forward because then we have to level out the camper. We'll be taking it down. Here, why don't we do this? Why don't you pull it forward, Mike?
I will in a second.
You're all right, you got clearance.
As long as it doesn't jump forward. Jump up.
No, if you just pull that forward. And then we're gonna have to kind of take a step back here with the camper. Oh. Now it used to be that Happier Camper offered the hitch actually had a level on it, which it doesn't have anymore. So I'm kind of looking at this thinking, I think the front needs to drop a little bit.
Yeah, it's on the way. If it's more than that, I'll just stop.
You can go, you can do it for that. I think that's not bad.
These have to come up. And do some more?
I think it's okay. Let's check.
They can go down a bit more.
It's funny how we're doing this video about the problem we had with the hitch, with the issue, because we were backing into this spot and it felt like the camper was fighting, which makes me feel like that brake is still engaged, as if it was the car preventing the camper from rolling backwards. So even though we've got it replugged in, I think there's something that still needs to be done, and I don't know what it is. But basically it means that we need to not back the camper up at all for the rest of the trip, which is not actually going to be a problem, but I don't know. That's the thing. I'll figure it out. One more thing. But anyway, babe, job well done. Yep.
Good.
Yep.
Next level.
So like and subscribe, and yeah, you can follow us as I think tomorrow I'm going to do a video about Chaco Canyon. I'm so excited.